Would you care for a piece of candy, dear?
Usually the host is home before the company arrives.
We thought you might be wondering why the candy box was empty, and we felt we owed you an explanation.
As you owe us.
You see, at the last minute, I simply couldn't bring myself to leave that much cash in a public place. I was afraid some innocent person might stumble upon the money, and therefore, as you undoubtedly know by now, the candy box was empty. We were aware that you might be upset when you found that out, but it bought us time, as they say in those awful gangster movies, to sort this mess out, and fortunately, we did.
Why on earth would you put money in a candy box, let alone break into my flat?
Oh, come now, dear. We've had so many successful negotiations with you in the past. I'm quite disheartened you didn't feel you could simply approach us with this one. We'd have gladly cooperated, just as you gladly agreed to watch the phones today and offered to gladly return our files in your first extortion note.
You're accusing me of something because I used the word gladly?
Oh, heavens no. We have your fingerprints on the ransom note. First, I mistook them for someone else's, but I'm certain they're yours, and I've collected some objects from your apartment for comparison purposes.
I suppose I should have come forward straight away.
Yes, you should.
But I was afraid that if I acknowledged my association with Mr. Nadolski, then his widow might find out, and I wanted to spare the poor woman's feelings.
Which leads us to the question of when you went into business with Mr. Nadolski.
The truth is, I didn't know Mr. Nadolski at all well. May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace.
Yes, yes.
He was only a casual acquaintance. He was a regular customer at Pearl's Roadhouse, where I go now and again. And one evening, he struck up a conversation with me. He was every bit the gentleman, polite and not at all pushy. He introduced himself by claiming to recognize me from the factory, but I couldn't for the life of me recall ever having seen him there. He told me he was working for you, and that was why he came to the plant.
We did hire him.
To write promotional material for Heritage Village.
Then he had seen me at the plant. He was telling the truth.
At least about that, he was.
Mind you, I hadn't the slightest idea he was a married man. He never wore a wedding ring, never hinted, as you Americans put it, that he was tied to a ball and chain. So I was shocked and saddened to learn he left a widow behind. It's some small consolation that neither his wife nor I were ever publicly humiliated by his actions.
How lucky for you both.
There's very little else I can tell you about him. We were certainly never business partners. I had no idea he was involved in anything underhanded. He didn't seem the sort.
Imagine our shock.
It was also a great shock to me to discover that Mr. Nadolski was in possession of so much information about your investments. It must be very unsettling indeed to have your records scrutinized by a stranger.
But if your relationship with Mr. Nadolski was serendipitous and casual...
How did you come into possession of his research material?
He invited me to dinner, and against my better judgments, I accepted his invitation.
This was...
the night he had that unfortunate accident.
Ah.
He was in high spirits. He wanted to celebrate what he called a most successful business venture. He was terribly excited about it, very proud of whatever enterprise it was he had been engaged in. Not that he gave me the details. He was tight-lipped about the details. Except to say that whatever financial deal he had just concluded was with you, Mr. Sloan.
I had paid him for his promotional material for Heritage Village.
So again, he was telling the truth. He also claimed that you gave him a very expensive bottle of scotch as a thank you. A Highlander's 12-year-old, I think it was.
I didn't give it to him, but it was my scotch. We had, as you say, concluded our business. And as a matter of common courtesy, I proposed a drink to seal the agreement. Common courtesy, it appears, is not as common as one would like. I misjudged the man.
So, over dinner that evening, Mr. Nadolski persuaded you to become part of his venture?
Not at all. We never ate dinner. I had misgivings, well-founded as it turned out, about socializing with a man I knew so little about. I asked him to take me home. He agreed immediately, a gentleman to the end. Perhaps he had had more to drink than I had realized. Or perhaps we had a flat tire because he lost control of the car when we came off the road.
You were in the car when he crashed?
I don't know how I was lucky enough to survive. I must have a guardian angel looking after me. I was able to leave the scene of the accident before anyone happened by. You understand, I did not want to compromise my reputation. Society thinks the worst of divorcees.
That is certainly true.
I was also able to bring Mr. Nadolski's research with me. When I read those papers, I realized that the authorities might not look kindly on you either.
And as you undertook to hide that research from the prying eyes of anyone who might happen to stumble upon the wreck,
The police were sure to find it.
you feel it reasonable that we express our gratitude.
We understand that you would want to be compensated for your trouble.
Fair market value. Isn't that what you Americans say?
It is reassuring to see an immigrant pick up our customs so quickly.
Where is Mr. Nadolski's research now?
Hidden?
Mrs. Haley, would you excuse my wife and me for just a moment?
Certainly.
We are not going to pay her cash.
I agree. There is a simpler solution.
I agree.